I'm Reverend Marjorie Linton, Minister of Religion, author, spiritual advisor, and motivational speaker with over 20 years' experience. Welcome to my podcast, Healing Thoughts Today, where I share workable views for healing and inspiration to empower you and lift your vision higher. Good afternoon. We're in the Lenten season, and it is a time when we become aware of our choices. The road to spiritual attainment is not an easy one for truth seekers. There are many trials along the way, and our life's experiences take us along challenging paths. Amen? The challenges we encounter are at times self inflicted. And although they may be overwhelming, there is always hope once we become consciously aware of our oneness with God. Charles Fillmore writes in Keep a True Lent, spiritual power, mastery, and dominion are attained by the overcomer. Amen. We exercise dominion when we discover who we are and recommit ourselves to Christ consciousness. As we encounter trying experiences, my friends, we should focus mainly on the victory and less on the challenges. Revelation 3:21 says, "To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame and am set down with my Father in his throne." Amen. During the Lenten season, we remember the temptations of Jesus while he was on earth and before he entered public ministry. Jesus was human as well as divine. So he had his fair share of trials as human. However, Jesus was ahead spiritually. So he overcame temptations and he showed us how we too can do the same. As long as there is life, there will be challenges. And we all have individual lessons to learn. However, overcoming a mental struggle after a long and tedious journey can be a very rewarding experience. God is always calling us up higher, but nothing will unfold until we are ready to take responsibility. There is good in everyone, and no matter how great our transgressions are, the forgiving love of God is constant and everlasting. Forgetting the past can be a very long and difficult road for many people. When we truly decide to take responsibility, however, God will work in and through us to reverse our misdeeds. In order to receive forgiveness from God, we first have to forgive ourselves or others. Ultimately, our suffering will last for as long as it takes, until we give ourselves permission to let go and let God. In Genesis chapter 25, because of Jacob's wrongdoing, tricking his brother, and deceiving his own father for material gains, Jacob struggled with his conscience for quite some time until he decided to take responsibility. God forgives us always, but we must seek forgiveness by taking responsibility for our actions. Jacob suffered the consequences of his wrong action, and he wrestled with the man of God. But Jacob was determined to overcome his battle. With sheer determination, Jacob said to the man of God, I will not let you go until you bless me. The man of God was impressed with Jacob's strength, determination, and desire for freedom, and rewarded Jacob with a name change. You will now be called Israel, said the man, meaning Prince of God, because you have power with God and man. Jacob named the place Peniel because he had seen God face to face. Amen. Jacob wrestled with his own thoughts over his past, and he suffered mentally with feelings of isolation, guilt, and shame. Jacob eventually saw reason from the perspective of truth, and he surrendered. As his awareness of God grew stronger, it became easier for him to release the past. Because of his sincerity, humility, and his willingness to surrender, God was willing to see Jacob through the darkness. God is everlasting and unconditional love, and he wants us to experience his love always. Carolyn Miss says in her book, Anatomy of the Spirit, confession is symbolic of purging all that is not honorable within us. It heals the damage we create by the misuse of our willpower. Amen. No matter what we're going through, the presence of God is always with us, and he does not hold us in bondage to the law. We have the power within to change any unforeseen circumstance in our life. But we must be willing to take responsibility and to consent to being transformed by the renewing of our minds. And God's forgiving grace will always be our self-sufficiency in all circumstances. Jacob's overcoming shows us there is always hope for us through the love of God. We face daily struggles that seem to engulf and alarm us. But when we reach out to God and acknowledge our powerlessness of our own, he will rescue us from our fears. We are never alone, my friends. Jacob experienced a mental separation only because of his own guilt. But God was always with him. Because Jacob acknowledged his mistake, however, he was ready and willing to take responsibility and initiate change. It is not always easy to overcome challenges, as doubts, anxiety, and fear constantly get in the way. And we question ourselves, am I worthy? Is God true to his word? Will things really change? When we persevere in our faith, pray without ceasing, and reach for our highest ideals, God will come to our rescue and give us the desires of our hearts. We will eventually overcome. As the light of understanding dawned on Jacob, he used his challenges as his stepping stone and he anointed it with oil to signify his gratefulness for the challenge. Through it all, not only did he develop a personal relationship with God, but he reaped great rewards as he learned to trust in God and prove the wonderful working power of God within him. At last, Jacob experienced mental freedom, and the challenge no longer prevailed. He totally released it and turned it all over to God, and the guilt and the shame he once felt were gone. Jacob was now ready to put the pieces back together and get on with his life. Like Jacob, when we continue in the relentless search to attain spiritual fulfillment, we become strengthened, more conscious, and willing to take responsibility. We then become empowered and joyful in the awareness that God does not punish anyone, nor does he hold anyone in bondage. There is always a way out with God, my friends. All things work together for good. Romans 8:28. Once we surrender to God's presence and the power in our lives, God never fails to turn our sorrow and pain into joy and happiness. And the discomfort one endures in the struggle cannot be compared with the blessings to be realized in the overcoming. Amen. And now let us look at some points for contemplation. Our life's experiences take us along challenging paths. The challenges we encounter are at times self-inflicted. Although challenges may be overwhelming, there is always hope with God. We exercise dominion when we recommit ourselves to Christ consciousness. We should focus mainly on victory and less on challenges. Jesus was human as well as divine, so he had his fair share of trials. Jesus was ahead spiritually, so he overcame temptations, and he showed us how we too can. Once there is life, there will be challenges. Overcoming a mental struggle can be a very rewarding experience. Nothing will unfold until we are ready to take responsibility. There is good in everyone, and no matter how great our transgressions are, the forgiving love of God is constant and everlasting. Forgetting the past can be a very long and difficult road for many people. When we truly decide to take responsibility, God will work in and through us to reverse our misdeeds. To receive forgiveness from God, we must first forgive ourselves or others. Suffering will last for as long as it takes, until we give ourselves permission to let go and let God. No matter what we're going through, the presence of God is always with us. God does not hold us in bondage to the law. God's forgiving grace will always be our sufficiency in all circumstances. God does not punish anyone, nor does he hold anyone in bondage. There is always a way out with God. Amen. And now, please join me for the call to action. I invite you now to take a moment in the silence. Become aware of God as a living, loving presence within you, and bask in the sunshine of His glory. There is only God. In His presence, you safely dwell. Fear will fade away, and faith will fill the space within your subconscious mind as you say no to sickness, lack, and limitation. Claim your unlimited inheritance of divine power and strength. Align yourself with the life of God within you and experience the freedom of abundant living. Now, look forward to a new life filled with joyous expressions of God's love. This is the end of today's healing thoughts, my friends. I hope you have been blessed. Please subscribe. God bless you. Let me just add, beloved friends, that beginning next month, March 2023, the podcasts will be aired only on a monthly basis instead of on a weekly basis. I do hope that you will continue to listen and subscribe. God bless you. Goodbye.